Welcome into episode 120 of Clips and Dip. I'm Adam Oslin. We got Chuck Mockler. William Updike is here, raising the roof. The tripod is back, and we have a great show for you guys in this one. Coming up, we'll preview game 2 of this 2-game miniseries between the Clippers and OKC Thunder coming up tomorrow. It's kind of a big deal. We'll also pay off this tease. Why am I wearing a Lakers jersey? Did I lose a bet? What the hell's wrong with me? Am I switching sides? It's kind of like, did you ever read the Sesame Street book? There's a monster at the end of this book with Grover, and I think it was a way of translating.
What a reference!
No, I don't. What are you talking about?
Sesame Street book.
This is true. I think it was trying to translate FDR's saying of the only thing to fear is fear itself.
Okay.
By the end of the book, Grover realizes he is the monster in the book at the end of the book. That's what this is going to be like. There's no monster at the end. Trust me, you're going to like me again. I know this is weird to see me wearing a Lakers jersey right now. It's going to pay off in a big way. I'm telling you guys.
Grover's murdered his wife. He's leaving notes for himself to try to find the killer. He has no idea what's going on. Anyways, sorry.
If his wife was Elmo, I'd be for it.
We're learning a lot about Adam's literature depths today.
If you guys want to learn where to find us, or I'll teach you right now, just go to Apple, just go to Spotify. We're on every podcast platform in existence, including iHeart, and we're on YouTube now. Yeah. And that's kind of what this stupid publicity stunt is all about, trying to get you guys to watch us on YouTube as a new outlet. Check out the visuals. It's not just about our ugly mugs. We got jerseys. We got all kinds of crazy stuff. All right, let's start things off, though. Chuck, you want to introduce yourself officially here?
Sure. I'm Chuck Mockler. Most people, if you've listened to at least a couple episodes, hopefully know who I am by now. I'm feeling okay. Yesterday was surreal. Today didn't really feel much better after kind of what happened, but I'm hanging in there. I'm cold in Los Angeles in late March, which feels like it shouldn't even be a thing, but hey, it's all we can do, I guess, is try and stay warm now as Clippers fans.
I saw Day After Tomorrow trending earlier, that stupid movie with Jake Gyllenhaal where everything freezes over. Will, how are you feeling?
That's a fun movie.
Yeah, like 65. It's real fun.
It's a fun, stupid movie. Like what? I don't know what you're expecting from these.
I just thought you had some high-level art stuff when you were talking about David Lynch recently. I thought you guys were like into P.T. Anderson and the Coen brothers.
Dude, I am. I go both ways with it. Some movies are supposed to be stupid and entertaining, and that's fine. I didn't ask for The Day After Tomorrow, directed by Chantal Akerman. I'm just watching a stupid movie.
Chantal Akerman.
I think it was the guy who did 2012 instead, and ID4.
Will, how are you?
I'm great. Loving life, you know. After that PG news today, it's kind of best case scenario. So yeah, just smiling through this, loving my life.
I can't believe this is your life.
Smiling through the pain. Speaking of, we did get good news. It was great news, actually. I was pretty down. I got to be honest. As Will said, it's best case scenario. It's the best you could hope for coming out of what could have been a catastrophic, career-altering type of injury, which is what it looked like last night with Paul George at about the 4-minute mark of the fourth quarter. And today we get the news from AJ Wojnarowski that right knee that bent backwards, it is a sprained right knee. He'll be reevaluated in 2 to 3 weeks. Chuck, how much relief did you get out of that report from Woj?
I'm really sorry to rain on your parade. I got relief because I'm happy there's no serious injury that the imaging showed. The first image didn't show any serious injury, right? Like we don't know what the grade of the sprain is, or what specific ligament it is. So I don't know how I feel, if I'm being honest. I feel like I'm in limbo. We're in the reevaluation tango yet again, that if you're a Clippers fan, you're used to with this team. Law Murray had kind of a wild tweet that I'm sure we'll talk about in a few. But, I mean, I hope the reevaluation goes well in 2 to 3 weeks. But, yeah, I mean, it just sucks he's out for at least, I mean, a month is what it is. So I'm happy there's no serious damage. Obviously, very happy for that. Was sending good vibes all night and until we got the Woj bomb. But, yeah, I don't know. I know how this team is with injuries, so I'm I'm tempering my expectations for what we're gonna get. I'm still scarred from Luka Bamute's knee soreness and Kawhi Leonard doing a random warm up before that Warriors game last season.
Will, how about you? Are you feeling a little bit better than Chuck is regarding it?
I'm feeling certainly better than I did yesterday.
Oh yeah, I will agree with that.
I still think
I couldn't sleep.
Well, there's a couple of things. There's a couple of things. First off, the Clippers not the best at really reporting injuries. I don't know how many conversations we've had about guys who are on like shadow minutes limits, or they're just not in the lineup for some reason, and we just never really talk about it. Or something is. We'll talk about it later, but like it's similar to the Kawhi thing. Like, why was he questionable for the rest of the playoffs when, like we knew what the situation was. So that's one thing. And I guess the other aspect of it, and I don't mean to like harp on this, but like, why aren't they giving this stuff to the beat writers? Like, why? What? Like, I don't understand why none of this stuff is being communicated with to the people who cover this team every single day. And I'm not talking about us here. I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about I'm talking about the big dogs. I'm talking about your Andrew Grice. I'm talking about your Law Murrays. I'm talking about the people who like cover this team, who write articles for this team all the time, who are there every day. And these guys aren't the people who are getting the scoop on this. Like, I just don't understand why there has to be like the secrecy. It feels kind of clandestine. And then like B, why is this not something that you can like talk about to the local reporters? They have to find out secondhand from another report. Like, I don't know. That just, it rubs me the wrong way. And maybe that has nothing to do with the actual injuries themselves. Maybe it does. Who knows?
I do not think it has anything to do with the actual injuries. I share the sentiment. I wish the beat writers got a little more love for stuff like this. I think that's fair.
And I mean, it has something to do with the injuries in the way that they have a certain expectation when they give a scoop to a big ESPN reporter. Like, they know that it's going to be a little bit more positively leaned. And that is all that I meant in terms of like, if that's related to the injuries.
Got it.
Because a beat writer, yes, while they have some sort of loose, I guess, obligation to the team in that, they don't want to lose access. They're just not in the same position. You know what I mean? Like they don't have to, I feel like they're not as held to the optimism that you sometimes see from maybe a larger account.
Well, it seemed like Andrew Greif got the scoop on possible changes to the starting lineup before anybody else, which didn't actually come to fruition.
We'll take it. Yeah. Small victories.
No, it's interesting. I just checked the timeline of events, and Woj put the tweet out at 11:40 a.m. I got the email from the Clippers communications department at 11:43 a.m. So, yeah, it looks like he's had a pipeline, I think, to the Clippers for a while now. Maybe they just wanted to have it be national, be big immediately because it's good news as opposed to what a lot of the fears were.
Yeah, I think it's good news if you had watched the injury a bunch. And I think it's also just kind of regular news, if that makes sense, right? Like, we're not going to get details from this team. I think I had to tell myself this today, too. And for the fans listening, like, we're not going to know anything.
Well,
like we're not going to know.
There is a podcast that's coming. Podcast P. How is Paul George not going to talk about it?
Oh man. I mean, they're going to talk about it, but there's no way that the team is going to be
He's going to say I'm good, and that's going to be the end of that conversation.
Yeah, I don't know how how about this? I would be over the moon and I would eat my hat. I will eat my hat if Paul George on his podcast drops some kind of timeline that insinuates when he'll be back. Because there's no way that the team doesn't kind of maybe vet what they're about to talk about, especially this Clippers organization. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe I hope they have accommodation for whatever the situation is. My first thought when he got hurt was, oh no, will there be a new episode of Podcast P? As I'm sure everyone's thoughts were when he first got hurt.
Speaking of people eating hats and film, as we were previously on, did you guys know that Werner Herzog ate his own shoe after losing a bet to Errol Morris? Anyways.
You're trying to get back in my good graces with your movie opinions. Okay, I like it. Werner Herzog for the win. Grizzly Man.
So we talked about. Oh, all right. I have a fun fact about Grizzly Man that I'll share after this.
He didn't die.
I'm the proverbial Grizzly Man.
Yeah. That guy. So I'll share it right now. The guy who was in Grizzly Man was
Timothy Treadwell.
Was named the 48th most annoying movie character of all time. He got eaten by bears. He shouldn't have been hanging out with those bears. I don't know. All right, back
big heart.
Yeah, well, the bears would know. Back to PG stuff. I mentioned we don't know what the grade of the sprain or what specific ligament it is. There's a sports doc on Twitter who has a YouTube channel's name's Brian Sutterer MD. He's not like a crazy person doctor on Twitter with like an egg profile or anything. He's
kind of the first person that I go to if there's an injury thing. He's really like, he talks about timelines, and obviously he's not there on the scene. He's not evaluating the athlete, but right. he knows enough to give some general timelines. I haven't actually looked up to see if he is an actual doctor. I really don't care. His opinions seem well researched enough that he's pretty close on things.
Will's like, he was wearing a stethoscope. What else do you want me to do?
I coughed. He asked me to cough. I coughed.
So he said that a sprain, and Dr. Shapp of the 213 Hoops Empire,
who doesn't do enough injury timeline stuff. Very disappointing. Very disappointing over there.
I was always kind of curious if he was a real doctor, but I'm aware now he is.
A lot of people are
very much a real doctor. So Brian Sutterer said, sprain suggests a ligament injury, and this timeline is probably too quick for an ACL sprain. PCL sprain would fit with that timeline and mechanism, but we may get some more information. He's obviously not a fan of the Clippers because we're not getting any more information. Bone bruising is almost a key determinant of the timeline, and even though it wasn't mentioned, it's certainly there. So it seems like, based on this doctor's view, that it's probably a PCL strain. I also think for timeline, I wonder what he thinks that means. I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, I wonder if he thinks like the evaluation period, or if that means he's coming back. Like, either way, I don't know. Doctors on Twitter believe that this is a PCL sprain. The earliest he can be looked at is April 5th, but that would be the 2-week timeline, not the 3-week timeline. So that doesn't really matter a whole bunch. I mean, he's missing the regular season for sure, and who knows how much playoffs he's going to miss, or what the Clippers' kind of seeding and situation will be, because we have 9 games left, 2 back-to-backs. We're sitting in 5th, 1 loss ahead of the play-in teams, 2 losses ahead of 12th place. Adam, how are you feeling with 9 games left? Who are we looking to step up? Like, where are we at? Unless you want to give your medical opinion, go for it.
Can we talk about, just for one quick second, just in case you didn't Google it, for the listeners, the PCL
posterior cruciate ligament.
Adam knows. It runs across the back of your knee, and it basically connects your thigh to like the bone, to your lower leg bone. And it specifically says on this article that I'm looking at that it helps your knee move smoothly, which is a key to PG's game.
Isn't that what every ligament does in your knee? Sorry.
PCL, I from what I'm determining from my Cleveland clinic is specifically denoted for smoothness.
Okay, so important for PG. Adam, how are you feeling? Where are we at? We've had a day to compress, 9 games left, all of them very important, including against the Suns to close the season.
Adam was also down bad yesterday. He couldn't let it show. He's got to be brave for the callers, but he was down bad.
I put on a brave face and
then a Lakers jersey.
They're both lies, by the way. Although, yeah, we took a lot of calls last night, and people were understandably very concerned with Paul George because you don't want the 2-1-3 era to possibly end like this or be defined by major knee injuries, first to Kawhi, then to Paul George. Right. That looked like worst case scenario. Now that Kawhi's back, Paul George does his knee. So this news coming in the manner that it did today with this evaluation and this diagnosis, I should say, it's pretty positive and uplifting compared to the worst case scenario.
Those replays were terrible.
Could have meant.
Like they showed the replay too many times. Like I was like, I left the room. I was like, I don't want to see this. I'm also a Dolphins fan, so I watched the replay of Tua almost dying like 6 times. So I was like, we don't need more replays. We need one, and you're done.
The one thing that came to mind right away, though, was it looked eerily similar to what happened to Giannis Antetokounmpo in the Eastern Conference Finals during their 2021 Finals run.
Right.
He was out for a week. Now, that's Giannis. Everybody's body is different. I don't remember. I didn't see any of the medical examinations of what they called his injury, if they went into specifics, or they just said it was a sprained knee or a hyperextended knee. But it looks very similar to what happened to Paul George, and he came back in 1 week. So I was holding out hope that, Paul George, maybe not the medical marvel that Giannis Antetokounmpo is, who was 6 years younger at the time. I think he suffered it when he was 26. PG-13 is 32. But this, to me, was best case scenario. Reevaluation in 2 to 3 weeks. Hopefully, because the way he was playing and the way he had gotten over the hump with that right knee soreness he had throughout the season, and the other similarity to him and Kawhi Leonard was Kawhi just had the dunk over Derek Favors and does his knee. Yep. Paul George just had the 360 two-handed dunk.
Oh my God,
and then does his knee.
Dude. That dunk came out of that dunk was wearing a ghillie suit in the middle of a marsh and just came out of nowhere. Like the whole crowd was like, "What the fuck did we just see?" Like he just broke out.
Paul George was trending yesterday for like diametrically opposite reasons. Like it was truly so unfortunate.
There was this delayed response at the arena from it. Like, what did we just see here?
I had a friend text me this morning. They go, "That PG dunk was crazy," and I was like, "Yeah, it's a shame what happened." And he was like, "What happened?" And I was like, "Oh, you son of a bitch."
So for it to go down like that, to where you see the potential athleticism at Paul George at this juncture of the season, where he looks to be back to his healthiest form, and then for it to happen, somebody called in, was talking about curses and all these things. I don't believe in that stupid crap. I don't know how the Boston Red Sox overcome their curse. I don't know. They just played harder. I don't remember a ceremony or a seance.
Did they bring a goat in? Because there was a goat involved with the Boston curse. I believe.
The Cubs was the curse of the Billy Goat.
Right.
They didn't bring a damn goat in. They didn't slay a lamb. They didn't do any of that stuff. Like they just played better. I don't believe in curses, jinxes, karma. I can't stand
believe in
this conversation. No, go to Children's Hospital. There's no karma.
But would you drink a little bit of blood if they were like the Clippers? The Clippers have a 95% chance of winning a championship if you just take a little sip of this blood.
I would cut through this jersey.
Whose blood? First, my question is whose blood?
You know say.
Angelina Jolie's. Bring it in.
It's already in vials.
Yeah, it's ready. I would do ridiculous things. I would cut off a pinky for the Clippers win a championship. I want this fan base to experience it. They deserve it all because of things like this they've been through.
How many fingers would you cut off for the Clippers to win a championship?
I could go Ninja Turtle. I just need 3.
Damn! On your strong hand?
If it's a strong championship run. If we're talking 4-4-4,
just sweeping the whole way.
Yeah.
All right, that seems fair. All right, that's fair.
For history, whatever it takes.
So go ahead.
It was just eerily similar to the Kawhi Leonard situation, and it happens against OKC, the team we traded to SGA for Paul George. All these storylines and weird coincidences lining up at the same time. I was down bad because of that last night. It just felt like a nightmare. And I wouldn't know because I couldn't sleep to get to that nightmare, but still, it was a living nightmare.
The sleep paralysis demons were like, where is Adam today? What is he doing? So now we're looking for who's going to step up, right? So we have to assume that Eric Gordon is going to take Paul George's spot in the starting lineup, right? Like, I think that probably makes the most sense. Norm, when he gets back, will go into Eric Gordon's spot from the bench. I think that makes sense, right? The issue, since the All-Star break, lineups that have Kawhi Leonard without Paul George are minus 10.6 net since the All-Star break. Over the whole season, Kawhi lineups without Paul George, plus 14 over 490 minutes. But net, it's a plus 1.3.
Can you explain the difference to me here from the plus 14 overall to the net just plus 1.3? So sorry, per 100 possessions?
Yeah, that's per 100 possessions.
And Charles, if I'm not mistaken, I believe there's net and net.
Yeah, there's net and net. The real stat that we need to look at, because it's a completely different team, is that minus 10.6 net in 94 minutes of Kawhi Leonard without Paul George post the All-Star break. Because the bench has been bad. And not even the bench. Marcus Morris has been very bad offensively since the All-Star break started.
A lot of those minutes probably coming back half of the first quarter then, when Paul George goes to the bench and it's Kawhi out there with Russ and those guys. Yeah.
For sure. So who do you want to step up more? Because we know that Morris is probably going to get leaned on a little more. We know that Westbrook's going to get leaned on a little more. Like, I'm kind of excited to see Gordon in the starting lineup. I mean, I'm not excited why, but now that we're here, I'm excited to see Gordon in the starting lineup. And knowing Ty Lue, we might see some random stuff. Like, I kind of don't know what to expect, but I don't know. Will, what are you looking for?
I mean, I'm curious to see. I would love to see maybe Terence Mann back in the starting lineup. Limited sample size. Eric Gordon has not been great in that starter role. Once again, very limited sample size. But I don't know. But on paper, Eric Gordon definitely fits next to Russ. A little bit, he can play off ball better defensively, certainly. But yeah, I'm a little unsure of that. I also do think, though, I think that this should kind of be like I don't want to say the final, but the near final kind of prove it moment for Marcus Morris, right? We went from, 2 seasons.
I don't think he's going anywhere, though.
Just hear me out. Like we just went from like 2 seasons ago where, I mean, more often than not, one of the first offensive plays would be drawn up for Morris, right?
Totally.
And that was able to get him going. And maybe if you lean on him a little bit more, he starts to get that rhythm back and he starts to get it going. Because with where he's at defensively right now, if he doesn't have it going offensively, there's very little value to having him on the floor. And I say that as a Morris fan. There right now, with where he's at, it appears as though there's very limited value to having him on the floor. I mean, I look at that. I look at that last possession in the loss against the Thunder. Morris was right there. He was open. Did not have the trust, right?
Kawhi
or Kawhi just like had trouble making a decision. But Morris was right there. The shot was right there. Slipped the screen, whatever. But I do think that like this could be an opportunity to maybe get him more involved, see some sets that kind of diversify sort of his scoring portfolio, things that he's a little bit more used to, getting some post ups, just getting some different looks, getting some different things, getting a little bit more confident. Because I think if he's one of those guys who ends up being lean more and we somehow end up below 500 in this next stretch of games, I just feel like that's a pretty strong indication of where we should go in the possible play-in and certainly the playoffs, should we arrive there.
I just wonder, is it so much a confidence thing or he's just not the same player thing? That's what I'm wondering.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This should be like the final litmus test, right? Like he's going to demand a larger share of offensive possessions. He's going to get more opportunities. And if that's not what it takes to turn a corner, I just feel like you have case. You have your evidence. You have everything kind of locked up. Hey, like, you've had every available opportunity. And I'm not saying he's going to get plucked out of the starting lineup because I don't think that's going to happen at this point. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
But
Totally.
I do think that it could possibly, or not even, it should change what that means for Morris in closing lineups. It should change what it means for Morris's minutes when things aren't going well. I just think that this is a prove it moment for him. And and I'm not in the coaching staff, right? Like I'm not a GM. I'm not anywhere in the room.
Wait.
But to me, like, this is that. Like, this is the situation. Like,
if you're gonna step up now, dude.
step up or step down. And I just feel like that's kind of where we're at.
The lease has to be so short with him because there's only 9 games left. But he played 30 minutes last night. So I don't know if that's going to be the case. We did see Rocco.
I loves him
in the fourth quarter playing without Paul George.
But
Rocco was not.
I'll tell you what.
Rocco went loco.
Dude, he took 7 shots in like
YOLO.
a minute and a half. He took a left-handed.
He was sipping on 4 Rocco over there.
He took a left-handed bank shot. What?
Actually, it was more like 7 Rocco, but
yeah, like to quote Patrick Ewing, like, do you practice that shot? Like, is that a shot you work on? You work on the left-handed bank runner? Like, Rocco looked pissed, dude. And he should have been given more time throughout the season, but like he was playing upset, I would say, yesterday against the Thunder. Because he also doesn't know when he's gonna play again.
So he was trying to get his shots in and maybe find a rhythm there. I didn't mind most of them, but he couldn't get much to go.
No,
he did have a steal. He did have a couple of deflections. I still liked his energy out there, but it was an interesting stint from Robert Covington. Maybe something that was building for a long time, or a long time coming from him. I don't 7 minutes taking 8 shots is bizarre to see.
For a player like Robert Covington, that's Lou Will numbers. That's not Robert Covington.
It's Russell Westbrook. Like,
yeah.
He only took 10 in 26 minutes.
Right. Which is a great play on Russ, by the way.
Speaking of Russ, though, what are you guys expecting to see? What do you want to see out of Russ from this stretch? Like, how can we make this work? Because mixed bag. Realistically mixed bag post All-Star break. I'm not going to say it's been all bad. We're sub 500
with him in the lineup. It's not like
it's kind of been Russ. It's kind of been Russ Russin. But what do you guys want to see from this sort of stretch?
I thought actually yesterday was his best defensive game by far as a Clipper. The way he was fighting through some of those screens, he got called for a foul late on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander where he was playing tremendous defense. And it was almost like the accumulation of physicality that he was showing on that one play eventually got the foul called on him. Before that, they were letting it go, and we'll get into the refs a little more in a little bit here. But his effort was great on that end. And he was a +9 in a game that they lost by 1. I thought it was one of his better games as a Clipper, and he's had a history. That was his 10th game against OKC since he left them.
OKC, yeah.
In the first 9, he's something like over 50% shooting, 25 points per game he's been averaging against them. He gets up for these games, and I love the energy he brought with the crowd too, trying to get people involved, trying to get the fans involved, trying to make it a better home court environment for the Clippers. So I'm guessing, considering he had been playing 30 minutes the 2 games prior to this, that he's likely going to play around 30 minutes at least now without Paul George.
Yeah.
And do you see him in closing lineups? Do you want him in closing lineups?
I think it depends on the flow of the game and how he's looked out there. I think there's times where it has worked and there's times where it hasn't. And there's times where Coach Lue has not played him at all down the stretch of games. When Terence Mann has had some really good games, he's kept Russell Westbrook off the floor along with Eric Gordon.
And I'm certainly not. I'm certainly not blaming Russell Westbrook for the inability of the Clippers to get a shot off in clutch time last game. But I will say it does affect the spacing if he's going to be out there. That's just unavoidable. All right, Charles. Sorry, I cut you off. You get into your Westbrook your Westbrook thoughts here.
Here's a stat that I was texted and given. The Clippers are 0-4 in games with a final margin of 5 points or fewer since the All-Star break. Russ has closed all 4 games. I'm not saying that's a causation. What I think
came from Joseph Rye Award, didn't it?
Yeah. What I'm thinking is we are now in when Kawhi is off the floor, this is Russ's team now. And I'm not promoting that, but there's no Paul George. And Russ is very good at vibes. He's the best locker room guy we have. I have no problem saying that. The vibes have been fantastic in terms of off-court stuff since he's been here. I want to see distribution and rebounding Russ to the max. That's all I want to see. I don't want to see bank shot mid-range jumpers. I'm sure this exact diatribe has been said by a couple other teams podcasts already, but like I want full distribution Russ. I don't care if he misses shots at the rim if he's not taking shots away from the rim. I want him to have 6 points. 12
I do care if he's missing shots at the rim.
But you know what I'm saying, man. You know what I'm saying. We have to take what we can get right now.
Hey, he made his layups last night.
I hope what we get is like, I hope the assists outweigh the field goal attempts, and I hope the same thing for rebounds. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I think that's the Clippers' best case scenario to end this season strong. Is distro Russ, like Westbrook distribution, like because that's where we're at. Ty Lue loves Russell Westbrook. Like this is where if we want this minus 10.6 net rating in 94 minutes with Kawhi and not Paul George on the floor, like we need distro Russ, and we need him. Adam, you're right. The defense was solid. Like we need him to just be fine on defense because. I don't know. I'm hoping the supporting cast can play well. When the Clippers made the Western Conference Finals, we had Kawhi Leonard and PG playing at an unbelievably high level. We also had a third guy who was playing out of his mind. Reggie Jackson was out of his mind. These guys would pick and choose their spots. Morris likely
was also really good in that playoff.
Absolutely. Run. Like most likely we're down Paul George for the first round. Is how I feel. The reevaluation, the language, I can't put any hope personally on him coming back for the first round because we don't even know if we're going to be a play-in team. So we need Russ and everyone else to equal Paul George and a half, if that makes sense for like production and stuff. And I hope we get it. And I think we get it by Russell Westbrook continuing to do what he's done, which is buy in. He's done a great job of buying in. He hasn't, bucked any of what Ty Lue's wanted him to do. We've seen how the offensive rebounds have worked out. There's more space on the elbow and these dribble hands off and all this stuff. Like, we just need that fully. And I'm happy we have more practice time. That's something that's nice about the Clippers schedule, despite there being 2 more back-to-backs. Like, we just need distro. We need distro Russ.
They also need Terence Mann, who has yet to play 30 minutes in a game post All-Star break with Russell Westbrook to log some heavy minutes. There's really no excuse for him not getting 30 minutes in a ball game that he's not getting kicked out of. Terence Mann has to be integral down the stretch of this season when you have to win games. I think at worst, they got to go 4-5 at worst in the final 9 games if they want to. And I'm talking about just making the postseason. That could still mean play-in. But to stay out of missing the playoffs altogether, missing the postseason altogether, they got to at least get 4 wins here. And one of them probably has to be against OKC, who would be tied with them tomorrow.
Yes.
Same record if they beat the Clippers.
Yes.
To me, Terrence Mann, this is your time. Please enter that mode he was in during their playoff run, because he's had, I would say 2,
or even where he was pre All-Star break. Good Lord, the man had one of his best offensive performances ever.
Yeah, I think he's had 2 really good games post All-Star break, and that's rough to see because he was playing really good basketball before that.
Here's something that's hard: NBA remaining strength of schedule. In the Western Conference, Thunder have the easiest. Dallas, second easiest. And then we're lumped in there. We're like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're like the 6th hardest, so nothing too crazy. But the Clippers kind of need some help from other teams. But Adam, I loved your point about Terrence Mann. Will, you talk about how this is Marcus Morris's time. This is Terrence Mann's time to for the umpteenth time, show this coaching staff that he needs important minutes. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Like
100%.
this is another opportunity. I like viewing this as opportunities for guys. That's how I'm mentally getting through this. Is I believe that Terence Mann can step up. Eric Gordon stepped up. I'm hoping Marcus Morris has stepped up.
Well, I mean, honestly, other than some portions of this season, every time somebody has gone down, every time, that there's been a bunch of changes with the lineups and inconsistencies, we've seen guys overperform what they would do, right? Like we've seen guys step up to the plate time and time and time again. We've seen it from Batum. We've seen, we certainly saw it from Regier. We saw it from Luke. We've seen it from guys who are no longer on this roster, but that toll definitely weighs on you. But we had, like, this is the final stretch. And like, this is, not to get too dramatic, but like, this is the swan song for this iteration of the Clippers. Like if we can't get some, I want to say abnormal in the good way performances from some of these other contributing guys. Like, I mean, that's kind of it, right? Like it's opportunity moment, but it's also like do or die.
We're in the playoffs. We're in the playoffs already. In terms of mentality, every game, we're just in the playoffs right now. Like intensity wise.
I'll tell you who else could really take advantage of these extra minutes out there, extra touches. Ivica Zubac. He didn't play in the fourth quarter last night.
We're going to talk about that. Yeah.
He was 5 of 5. I feel like, and I guess we'll get to it in a little bit here, but Ivica Zubac could really show the growth that he's had the last 2 seasons with this team.
Yeah, I totally agree. We're going to get into more of how important Ivica Zubac could be against this Thunder team coming up. We got an ad break. If you've experienced loud ads here on Clips and Dip, some people have. They really let us know.
You may be entitled to financial compensation. Go ahead.
From William
that's
Updike.
at Lucas J. Hahn on Twitter to get your check.
Go ahead, hit him up for your check. We got ads coming up. We're going to preview the Clippers versus Thunder game. There are ads coming up, so if your experience is that they have been too loud, go ahead and turn it down. Ads in 3, 2, 1. All right, we are back with the Clippers versus Thunder game preview. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but Paul George and Norm Powell are out. I'm sure you already knew that, but they're not going to be there. Adam, is this an opportunity to maybe discuss why on earth you're wearing a Lakers jersey?
Oh, right now? Sure.
I will say it is a gorgeous time capsule of early thousands jerseys where they were made from the shimmer material that is the opposite of breathable. Like if they could make sunscreen out of the shimmer material, no one would ever get sunburned again. Like it doesn't let anything through it.
So in last night's game, and this became overshadowed because the game was secondary after what happened with Paul George, it was hard to even think about the final possession, the big shot by Eric Gordon. And this, Terence Mann was ejected in the second quarter with about 4.5 minutes left after Kawhi Leonard picked up a technical, the 4th of his career. That's it.
What? Wow.
Let me see if I got that right.
Also, is there a limit on how many technicals can occur in a single possession? 3 techs on one call is absolutely absurd to me. Like, even forget Terence Mann being like that's the softest ejection ever. There needs to be some sort of limit as to how many techs you can handle in a situation.
I'm teeing everybody up, buddy. I'm teeing everybody
a tech
up.
Capper, especially in that short of time where no punches were thrown, where no one was touched. But post-game, it was said that there was aggressive hand clapping from Kawhi, who got fouled. And in fact, the referee admitted that later that he blew that call to Kawhi. So the whole thing gets compounded off of a bad call to start with Kawhi getting legitimately upset because he was fouled and it wasn't called. Then Terence Mann tries to get his back, and there was aggressive finger pointing, not with the middle finger, just a stern finger pointing.
Finger shook him. He went, no. And then the ref was like, whoa.
And then giving him a tech for that led to Terence Mann dropping an expletive for getting that tech. So he gets another tech. And Terence Mann said he didn't say anything. So who knows exactly what happened? It just looked like tech madness. Like, how could this be happening in a game of this magnitude where both these teams are fighting for playoff position? It's the first half. Terence Mann just had his best stint in a while. He had 8 points.
Yep, he was so good. Yeah.
He's crucial to this team, as we just talked about, and he gets kicked out. So we heard from Mike.
An important game. Like, that's the other thing. Like, it's not like this was just some BS regular season game. This game meant something, and every ref there knew that. Every person there knew that. I just think there needs to be a higher level of accountability in those sorts of situations.
Yeah, it's a gross misuse of power by an official out there who just went wild. Officials gone wild. But we heard Mike Fratello on the Bally call really lay into him.
He went
and it was awesome. Yeah. It was beautifully done. Can't say it any better than that. But I did say this post game, and Noah Eagle came on for the entire Clippers talk. So sorry, you guys got bumped for the double dip last night.
Of course we did. Noah Eagle takes precedent.
Voice of the Clippers came on, and I said something to the effect of, with the sense of a ref injecting himself so much into the ball game and affecting it so much and power tripping to that degree. And I haven't talked about the referees all season long. In fact, even when we talked about the Thomas Bryant goaltend on, was that Norman Powell or Eric Gordon, and how that affected that game, I said butterfly effect. Like, it doesn't mean you just tack on points at the end that they should have got for that obvious goaltend call. Sure. This was the only time this season where I felt like the officiating crossed a line. I mean, there were double fouls called. There was a free throw line violation called. The Dort foul, the offensive foul on Paul George on Dort, who kicked his legs out in that weird, unnatural way, was called a foul on Paul George. Now, I understand the Clippers really hurt themselves by missing 9 free throws, which is unacceptable in a game like that. I think they lost some focus, and it showed at the free throw line, 12 of 21. And they got 7 more free throws than OKC. Yeah. So take what you want from that. Maybe it's the Clippers' still self-inflicted wounds is what lost them that ball game, and just the fact that guys looked a little bit rattled after seeing Paul George go down with a devastating injury. Not as bad as we had thought at the time, but that has to leave you thinking, during football games, it happens all the time where it's a brotherhood. Somebody goes down and the rest of the guys start thinking about their, sport mortality and all these things. So I said this to Noah Eagle post game. I said, nobody comes into this arena wearing referee jerseys. No one comes in here and wants to see the refs put on a show. We're back in the 90s. I mean, there was a movie made with Billy Crystal about being a referee, and referees were more well-known, and there were a few guys that stick out. In particular, a certain ref who was a part of what's known in Northern California, the Game 6 screw job.
Oh, here we go.
That's why there's a 6 on this jersey. Okay. This represents Game 6 of the 2002 Western Conference Finals between the Lakers and the Kings. And when I stepped in it myself saying nobody comes in wearing an official's jersey, Noah Eagle was quick to point out, but wait, Adam, you have a Dick Bavetta jersey.
I forgot that you have this. I forgot that you paid to have a Dick Bavetta jersey made. Can you still make jerseys with referees' names on them, or have they outlawed it after what you've done?
I don't know how I was able to get away with this on NBA.com. I would have thought at the time David Stern was still alive. He would have vetoed this. He would have never let it happen.
He would have come to your house.
I know. I think the gif of him with the water bottle was when he heard someone was able to make a jersey with Dick Bavetta on the back representing the Lakers, because basically he was playing for them that night in Game 6 of the crucial, and it would have been the Kings closeout game, in the 2002 Western Conference Finals. So I have a lot of PTSD from that. And if anybody has ever wondered if I actually like the Clippers and don't like the Lakers, well, no need to wonder anymore. But so I thought I'd wear the jersey tonight because of that. Noah brought it up last night. Yeah, I do have a jersey for an official. It's mocking them in the sense that they were actually helping the Lakers on the court. But last night was one of the worst officiated games I've seen in a while. Some of those calls were absolutely egregious. The technicals, I couldn't believe you could have that quick of a whistle for a guy in Terence Mann This was his 4th technical this season, but neither he or Kawhi have a reputation for being hot-headed, for getting into it much. What I did notice was this. Earlier in that quarter, Paul George had a play, and he was right about this because they had just called an offensive foul on him. I think this wasn't the play against Dort, but against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, where he leaned into him and I think was called for an offensive foul. On the other end, SGA looked to get away with the shove, and next time down at the free throw line, Paul George had a long, extended conversation with an official. I don't know if it was the one who got tech happy, but I think that frustration just boiled over from the official side of they're still chirping, they're still talking with us. We're going to make an example out of them now and try to calm some of this down. They stepped over the line. The 2 Ts that went so quickly to Terence Mann, that was way too far. And they were wrong on the call with Kawhi Leonard. That got him his 4th technical of his career.
It. They told Kawhi. They were like, it was our bad.
Well, and I'm not even one to like overly criticize the refs, right? Because I think a lot of times it kind of ends up in the wash. And, you know, like it or not, reffing is nothing that you can ever control. And if your team is in a position where a ref is deciding the game, that's a little bit of a reflection on yourself, right? But this was a different level. And I cannot imagine, I truly cannot imagine something like this happening in the playoffs without a deeper look at it. I really, truly cannot imagine that.
And the truth is, there's postseason ramifications to this game. It was a 1-point game in the end.
Oh, yeah.
Because it happened in the second quarter and everything that proceeded afterwards or transpired with Paul George getting hurt, you forget about it. But the officiating, that was one of the worst games. And I don't know any OKC fans, so I can't see it from their side. Maybe they thought there were some really bad calls that went against them. But I'm guessing the average NBA fan must have felt like, wow, that was a pretty quick trigger there to send a guy and eject him after that call. That seemed a little bit out of the ordinary, especially early on in the game. The only thing I could point to was Paul George was in a long conversation, and he didn't look demonstrative with the way he was going about it. He didn't look like he was overly passionate or being out of line. It was just an extended conversation all the way up the court. There was a foul. He's at the free throw line. He's still talking to the official, and I think they just wanted to kind of to nip it in the bud right there.
Well, hopefully we don't have to deal with any of that tomorrow night. I hope if we have a last-second shot opportunity, we can get one off. That would be nice to see, just the ball at the rim.
Can we talk about that?
Sure.
I was wondering, because I didn't get a chance to look at the numbers, but how many of these clutch time games, like where it's within a single possession, have we failed to get a possession off? Because it's definitely more than one. Like where we failed to get a single like field goal attempt.
This possession was, there's not one person to blame on the team for this. But if you were to point to someone who maybe could have done a little more, I was genuinely surprised watching Kawhi dribble the air out of the ball on that final possession. I know you can say Marcus Morris set a bad screen. He called for both of those screens that Russ came and set, and then Morris came and set. And I don't know. I don't know how else to say other than I was just surprised he dribbled the air out of the ball. Everyone's watching Kawhi to say, do your thing. Like, I mean, I'm not saying it's a good process right now, right? But Kawhi, we had no timeouts because that's been an issue lately with kind of conserving these timeouts late in games.
And there was a challenge that was unlikely to get overturned, but exactly. you could make the argument that there were so many wonky, weird calls that why couldn't there be one more with the Clippers?
Why not roll the dice? I think that's a good perspective.
Just get a shot up. Like Kawhi, Dort is a phenomenal defender. I'm not taking anything away from Lou Dort, the Haitian sensation. This was like, it was frustrating watching Kawhi dribble it out. I'm going to leave it at that because if there's one person I trust against the best defender on another team to at least get a shot up, screen, no screen, it's Kawhi.
So that was the mental kind of gymnastics I was doing while that possession was unfurling. You see Morris slip the screen. He's open. Do you want Morris? Like, do you want the ball with the final possession in Morris's hands? Like,
not yesterday. No, I don't. But
he was 1 for 6 from 3.
Yeah, Adam, you have some thoughts on this final possession. Why don't you give us your perspective? Why don't you give us a breakdown?
I went Zapruder film with it.
I was going to say a Ghost of Zapruder on it.
I went fine-tooth comb through it, and I read what some other high-level, not some other because I'm not one of them, but what some high-level basketball minds had to say about it.
Nearly as smart as Adam Oslin. Nearly.
I filtered it down to basically seeing it like this. The first mistake is you're down by 1. There's about 24 seconds left. It's basically a 2-for-1 situation because you get a shot up and you miss it, you intentionally foul, and at the free throw line at most they're up by 3, and you get one more shot at it. And if you get that shot off quick enough initially, you still should have plenty of time left to bring it up the court because they didn't have a timeout to get another opportunity. For them to wait for the final shot there was interesting, to say the least. I'm going to be honest. It was an unmitigated disaster. It was one of the most embarrassing endings to a game at a professional level that I had ever seen. And it's more wild to think about because of Kawhi's high-level basketball acumen and how good he's been in these clutch situations and much bigger ball games than this. But I think there was a lot of miscommunication out there because at first it looked like he wanted the screen to get the switch and get Dort off of him. The problem was he wasn't very close to the screener, so he couldn't rub shoulders with him and go by. He wasn't that close. Then it came down to, I think what he wanted was Marcus Morris to clear out to take his man in Giddey, who switched on to him further away from Kawhi so he could get a one-on-one opportunity with Dort because the time was winding down. And after Marcus came by and ran that slip screen or that ghost screen, Giddey now was like, oh, I'm just going to stay here. We know Kawhi Leonard is the guy who's going to try to take this final shot. Why am I going to even follow Marcus Morris? He wanted Marcus Morris to take his man with him to get more room to operate. But that
when
didn't
you're
really
1 from 6, you don't have that kind of gravity.
Like when you've been bad for the last 10 games, no one's going to respect your movement.
It was a lot of things out of sorts at once. I agree. It's not one guy. It wasn't just Kawhi. It wasn't just Russ. It wasn't just Marcus Morris. It was maybe a lack of playing time on the court in those situations and those type of reps. But I don't know. Kawhi's been in a lot of big games. It was just interesting to see. And the other thing I think about is they had a timeout basically during the review on whether or not Russell Westbrook touched the ball last. Yeah. Was there a play drawn up depending on if they got that stop, which they eventually did? And Coach Lue said post-game that he wanted to see them attack early on, get in a transition on that play because you're down by 1. So even if you miss, you can foul. You can get another possession even after the free throws. Maybe they go 1-2 and just a 2-point lead for them. Even so, they get to 3. Okay, you need a 3-pointer to tie it. Give yourself more opportunities to win the game.
You also got to wonder, and look, don't get me wrong. This is given the gravity and the situation of how big this game was for a regular season game, somewhat inexcusable. You got to wonder on Kawhi, how much the Paul George hyperextension was in the back.
Oh, the whole game was so wonky. It was so happened. It was just well, shit.
And I know what happens with every game. I know that it happens with every game, but it's it is sometimes a little bit incomprehensible for a game to continue after something that serious happens. Truly, I even look back to the Gordon Hayward injury in the Celtics' first game that season, and it's I honestly if I saw a coworker hyperextend their knee, I'm taking the rest of the day off. bare minimum the rest of that day, maybe the next day. That's just I don't want to say it's an excuse, but it had to have been a factor. There's no way that it couldn't have been.
I think that's part of the reason they were so discombobulated and couldn't get on the same page. It seemed like Morris was oh, you want another screen? And Kawhi was no, I want you to clear your man out and get out of the way. But at first he did want a screen. So I understand why they couldn't figure that out. If that's what it was, the hope is something like that never happens again. Coach Lue said it was a learning experience, but with 9 games left, they can't afford any more of these.
Right. And it's one of those 9 games is against the team that might tie us in the standings tomorrow night. So
they won't tie us. We'll just be tied in the loss column. We still have a full game up on them.
We have a full game up. We have the same amount of losses despite more games played. I'm looking for. I don't know how we manage the pace against this Thunder team. They're the third fastest team in pace. Law Murray pointed out that it's really hard to keep leads against a team that plays that fast because when they start getting hot. Will, what was it? Like in the first half, the Clippers were on the wrong end of a 15-1 run and a 19-4 run.
And a 19-4
in the first half.
Well, after they initially like uncorked that lead, that seems like, okay, all right, we're going to get it going. I mean, like, look, man, it's just been the same story with the Clippers all season long. They're either very like inefficient and have a bad start to a game, or they get out to a roaring start and like throw it away by the end of the second quarter.
They were shot out of a cannon. They were up 18-4 in the first 5 minutes.
It was the best first 5 minutes of the whole season.
And then they only went on to score, I believe, 5 more points in the rest of that quarter.
No, they went over 10 on field goals in the last 7 minutes and 12 seconds of the first quarter, to your point. That can't happen. Right. I don't know how.
And it won't. I don't think it will tomorrow night, right? Like, I don't think that's going to happen tomorrow night. Another thing, Isaiah Joe only went 2 of 8 from 3 last night. The dude is a plus 40% three-point shooter. That's going to even out. I hope we see more Zoo. I think there was some foul trouble yesterday, but he was 5 of 5. This Thunder don't have like a real center who can bang with Zoo.
Oh,
and so you come into this issue where are the refs going to let smaller guys get away with more physicality against Zoo and give Zoo the calls? You know, call Zoo for a foul when he's a little too physical back. Like, that's going to be a delicate balance tomorrow, but I hope they lean on Zoo early. I hope that first bucket play, Will, that you mentioned in the last segment that used to be drawn up for Marcus Morris, give it to Zoo, seal off his guy, go to work, man. Like, let's make it a little bit easier.
We've seen that too, right? Like, yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be completely alien to see us go lean on Zoo a little bit offensively, and I think while he had some struggles in that game, I mean, it certainly is a possibility for him to be able to exploit the size differential there.
Yeah.
I love the idea of just giving Ivica Zubac many more opportunities, because this is someone who's close to 70% shooting from the field. He can get you easy buckets. You just have to keep him involved on that end. It has been one of the missteps during the 2-1-3 era that Ivica Zubac too often gets lost in the sauce offensively, and they just forget about him. When you can get easy looks from him, I know sometimes his hands look like they're not the best. They're still solid enough, and he is a really good center in this league and has become an even better finisher. There's no reason, especially with Russell Westbrook out there now, that you can't get your big man more involved, because Russ has been good at that.
Show me a fan base also that isn't concerned about their starting center's hands, that doesn't have complaints about their starting center's hands. Like, I can't name one off the top of my head.
I can think of 2, and it's Denver and Philadelphia. So all those people can go deal with it. So we're taking the Clippers to win, right? We're taking the Clippers to split this miniseries with the Thunder.
They have to. They have to. I think that I think that even barring the PG injury, I got to be honest, when I looked at the schedule, I thought that this was likely a 1-1 result with the Thunder, to be perfectly honest.
It's hard to beat a team 2 times in a row like that, so I don't think that's crazy. And they've been playing.
I thought it would be a 1-1 split. This game will obviously be a little bit harder. I still think they have enough to get it done. And yes, I would see them I mean, they've lost the tiebreaker, but ultimately taking away the victory in this one.
I hope they can figure it out, because they had a great opportunity to win that game. Like, maybe that was the one that got away from them, and OKC is going to shoot much better than 10 of 37 from the outside. Now, Clippers were just 6 of 31. They had an unusually bad shooting night, and missing all those free throws, that came back to bite them. They're going to need a Kawhi Leonard masterclass. I'm interested to see how Kawhi bounces back, because we talked about it on the last show of
Kawhi versus own mortality. Anyone?
I don't think it's that.
How you can't rely on Kawhi to continue to shoot 50% from 3. And where would this team be if they didn't have this long run of almost 3 months of him just playing otherworldly basketball? Right. Well, guess what? Last 2 games from 3, 2 of 7, 2 of 5. he hasn't looked as good. He was 7 of 16. He wasn't 40% great.
Bad?
Well, it's good. The difference is 10%, though, from what he's been doing for 3 months. And my point is, they didn't win enough games while he was playing this well. Now, when that regression comes, what's going to happen to them? They've been overly reliant on him for far too long and still didn't do enough. I feel like they've let too many games slip. Like, they should have won 90% of those games where Kawhi was in that mode, where if he put up those numbers for a season and played 70 games, he's the MVP. If you're putting up 50, 50, 90 and plays 70 games, he is the MVP of the league.
You're probably
the MVP. He's about 15 games shy. He'll be about 20 games shy of that, I think, by the end of the season.
Yeah, and the numbers won't be there overall because he got off to such a slow start with the ramp-up process with him coming back and all that. I'm just saying he was at an all-time regular season level like we haven't seen in a long time from someone at that position. I mean, Kevin Durant has had a few of those stints here and there, a few of those stretches like that. But now I'm scared that without Paul George, Kawhi was just due to cool off. And now they lost Paul George. Who's going to supplement for that efficiency? How are they going to make up for it? I say get Big Zoo involved, get Man going.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's definitely much more of a scoring or a reproduction of PG by committee, right? And I think that is honestly, I mean, like, while PG has definitely had his slumps and his issues, I think that was the big thing with Kawhi performing at the level that he was and us still losing games was we underachieved with a lot of our role players, with a lot of these guys that we have been able to count on in the past. And, you know, hopefully with I don't know how to keep saying this, but like hopefully with how serious every game is to close out the rest of this season, you know, it can ignite something. It can get something going, because if it doesn't, you know, we're looking at a play-in and likely a play-in without Paul George, and probably
100% a play-in without Paul George.
Yeah, a play-in without Paul George, and, you know, a portion of a first-round series without Paul George. And, you know, given that and the lack of rest between the end of the season and the play-in, I just don't see that boding well for an old team.
I just feel like people have taken what Kawhi Leonard's been doing for granted for a while, and you're just expecting it to happen every night. Guess what? Yeah. Didn't happen last night. Didn't shoot well from 3 against Portland either. This stuff isn't sustainable forever. So they should have loaded up on more wins during that time. And now without Paul George, they need him to still be on that 50, 50, 90 heater. I don't know if he's going to be there, and I'm not going to blame him if he's not. He was due to cool off at some point. The timing, I think, could just be really bad for that to happen now with 9 games. And by the way, 2 more back-to-backs. What's going to happen with Kawhi Leonard? Does he feel more of a sense of urgency to play in one of those because there's no Paul George? I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, but right now it looks like they're going to be missing him for 2 of the 9 games.
I think that's totally fair. Man, I'm just going to be just as stressed tomorrow. And we're all going to be at the game, right?
Hell yeah.
I'll be there. Will, you going to be there?
Yeah.
We're still getting credentialed somehow, so that's going to be good. Are we doing a double dip tomorrow, Adam, on AM 570?
We should be, yeah. We should be tomorrow night.
TBD. It seems very TBD.
Seems TBD from Adam's end.
Well, you guys get your referee jerseys ready, and we'll make sure to make it happen. That's the stipulation.
All right.
Actually, fair. A buddy of mine has the Bob Delaney one, who was also a referee in Game 6. There's one more, though, Ted Bernhardt. I haven't forgotten about him. So
okay. Don't say the phrase. Please don't ever say the phrase, I haven't forgotten about him, in a malicious way on this podcast again. Very terrifying.
Hey, I don't remember the names of the guys who ref the game last night. I've let that one go already, apparently.
All right. No more research. Don't do any research on it. We're having a double dip for y'all tomorrow. A tripod on Friday to preview the shockingly very important game against the Pelicans. Please leave us some reviews, all that good stuff. Anything else you boys want to say before we let these fantastic fans go enjoy their cold March evening in Los Angeles?
Nah, let's get out of here.
Will wants to get out of here. Adam is flexing the jersey. The wheels are starting to fall off, so we're stopping the pod. We'll be back with y'all tomorrow. Full squad on Friday, and let's go Clips.